Hello and welcome again to Mountaintop Living. Yes, it is another beautiful and yes, excited day to be alive. I don't know about you, my friend, but I am so happy to be alive. Could have been the other way, but so grateful to be alive. So delighted to have our very distinguished guest today, Dr. JC. That's not Jesus Christ, but that is Dr. Joan Cartwright. You're going to be hearing from her in just a little bit, but I want to encourage you to go to our YouTube channel as well. Hit like, subscribe, and share, and help us on this end, if you will. And also, we want you to continue to spread the news about mountaintop living, our podcast that we do weekly. Mountaintop living is not actually physical, a place of being, but mountaintop living is living on top of the world. That's right. We are to live on top of this world. We are in this world, but we are not of this world. And yes, in this world, there are troubles, as it is written, many of the afflictions of the righteous. Also, they that live godly, righteous, they shall suffer persecutions, but we have victory over them all. I want you to prepare yourselves and get ready to receive some great informative information, testimonies, life skills that will inhabit you in your daily walk. All right, Dr. Joan, we want you to come on, if you will, and introduce yourself and share with the individuals here where you are from, and then we're going to proceed, come back and proceed forth into this podcast. Dr. Joan.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much, Michael, for having me.
Yes, you're welcome.
Originally, I'm from Queens, New York. I am the child of a Philadelphia woman with roots in South Carolina and a Bahamian father whose paternal line is English and Scottish, and his maternal line is Bahamian and Nigerian. Okay. So I'm 50-50, but
Oh, yes.
I'm Black. Okay.
Okay. All right, Dr. Joan. Thank you so much. I have a part here of your bio. Let me see if I can get this up here and if I can read. Yes. Okay. I want to read this. It says, giving women positions a voice in the wilderness is my passion. I go where I am celebrated, not where I am tolerated. Keep your dream close to your heart. Diva JC. Dr. Joan Cartwright is a retired jazz and blues vocalist, composer, producer, historian, and author of 14 books. She is the founder and executive director of Women in Jazz South Florida, a nonprofit organization in its 13th year of promoting women musicians globally. She is the recent the
Recipient.
recipient of the 2011 Spirit of Excellent Music Leadership of the Year Award from the American, let's get the other slide up here, from Winnipeg Seminars, LLC, for her work to empower women musicians, and the Quiet Storm Award for nonprofit organizations from the Women's Power Caucus of Incorporated Focus Magazine. Joan has worked with thousands of school-aged children, teaching them about music and women in jazz. Since 1998, Joan has received several $1,000s in grants from Broward School SEAS programs, Broward Culture Division, Miami Beach Arts Gala, Bank Atlantic, and other financial entities to produce programming for children, adults, and seniors. I'm going to stop right there. Dr. Cartwright, you have had a very promising, rewarding, and giving of yourself to so many people. As I read and as I read and think about the accomplishments that you have accomplished in your life in time, the first question that I want to ask you, what would you say it is, it has been, your motivation? What has empowered you to do the things that you have done?
Well, that's a great question. You know, you're a minister, so you were called to the ministry. Well, I'm a minister of music, and I was
Mhm.
called to music at a very young age, 4. Okay. So I've been around musicians all my life. I was a dancer first, and my dance teacher, Bernice Johnson, was the
Mhm.
wife of a very famous saxophone player from Kansas City, Bud Johnson. And he used to babysit me while between leaving my home and going to dancing school. So he would be playing the saxophone. I'm 4, and I
Mhm.
internalized jazz music. I was 27 years old when I realized how I learned how to scat,
Mhm.
which is be about babadoo wop, shop
Mhm.
babadoo dee da. You know, I,
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
4 years old when he was doing this. So, children are sponges and they absorb. Going forward from like 19 to 21, I would
Mhm.
frequent the jazz clubs in New York. I
Mhm.
knew Miles Davis, Betty Carter, uh, Lee Morgan, Freddie Hubbard, the greats. I was 19. And so
Mhm.
there again, I was impressed by the music. At 27, I began my own jazz career, and I
Mhm.
was surrounded by wonderful musicians in Philadelphia. Now, it's funny because, you know, a lot of Black people, if they don't know they're Black, if they don't grow up in America, if they grow up someplace else, they're just them.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't know that I was a woman in jazz until almost the end of my career, which was 40 years.
Mhm.
And what happened, I had toured 5 continents and worked with hundreds of musicians, but only 6 women. 6. So I said,
Mhm.
well, where are the women musicians? And I began gathering them. So from 2007, when I incorporated Women in Jazz South Florida, I recruited 433 members.
Wow. Awesome.
277 musicians, 76 men that support us in our mission to promote women musicians globally.
Hmm.
In about 2018, it could have been a little later than that, I published the first Music Woman magazine. And
Mm.
so my purpose is to document the lives of women in music, not just jazz,
Hmm.
blues, reggae, pop, classical, or hip hop, all
Hmm.
genres.
Hmm.
So, they call me the jazz lady in Florida because I used to teach the kids. But it's just that I'm the gatherer of women
Women.
musicians. Yeah.
So you're a networker.
Yes.
So, just the next question that I want to ask you is, what instruments, if any, do you play?
Well, I started on piano. No, my
Hmm.
first instrument was the drum, the tenor drum
Yes.
in a
Hmm.
marching band.
Fan.
Okay.
Hmm.
I tried flute. I played saxophone for a minute, but I'm too vain. So I couldn't do the lip part.
Hmm.
I played piano. I took piano lessons. I had a wonderful teacher in my
Hmm.
20s. I
Hmm.
also played harp,
Harp.
studied harp for 2
Hmm.
years. I
Hmm.
played the recorder. I played the glockenspiel, which is the bell. So I
Hmm.
was just music. I was a musician. You
Hmm.
know, I tried a lot of things, but
Just
I compose on piano.
on piano. Hmm. Just very musically inclined. Um, were your parents instrumental in music as well as the influence of your gifts and talents?
Well, my mother put me in dancing school at 4, so
Hmm.
yes, but
Hmm.
she played a little piano. My father was not player, but he was an ardent listener of classical music and
Hmm.
jazz. He
Hmm.
loved
Hmm.
jazz.
Yes.
And my parents lived in the Harlem Renaissance. So
Hmm.
my mother typed for Langston Hughes, the poet. And my father he worked at a newsstand in Harlem on Sugar Hill. And Duke Ellington's musicians all bought their newspapers from my father. So they were always around the scene.
Hmm. Awesome. Uh, when I think about the jazz age and that dispensation of time that you're speaking about, it shaped our music culture today. Um, so many R&B singers, rappers, and so forth, they are pulled tidbits from certain R&B groups and jazz singers and musicians of old. But yet, there is still such a great distance because of the computer and all of the new technology in composing music today. This question I want to ask you: what would you say is the main influence in causing there to be such a great difference in music then versus music today?
Well, technology, number one,
Hmm.
as human beings, we are always evolving.
See,
That's the
yes.
nature of a
Hmm.
human being.
Hmm.
But I have a philosophy that jazz and blues particularly, was
Hmm.
considered devil music by the church people. Well,
Hmm.
that was because the Negro was brainwashed into
Mm-hmm.
thinking that they would get their reward in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the whole basis of spirituals and gospel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, the blues singers said, no, I want my reward right here.
Right
I'm not
here.
going to wait till heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So they were thought to be very raw and crude. And blues is women's music, just like everything else that
Mm-hmm.
comes out of a woman. Men took it over and claimed it to be theirs. But the blues are the tears of an African woman enslaved in America whose
Mm-hmm.
husband is not coming home because he's either face down in a river, shot in his back,
Mm-hmm.
hanging from a tree with his testicles in his mouth, or
Mm-hmm.
headed north for freedom, never to
Mm-hmm.
return. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what the blues is, a
Mm-hmm.
woman in grief. But today, country western music is all based upon the blues. Rock and roll is based upon the blues.
The blue.
Jazz is the child of the blues. But
Mm-hmm.
the church demeaned that expression. And that, to me, is the biggest crime that has happened in the music world.
I concur. As you stated, 35 years of ministry, preaching, teaching, 30 years of full time senior pastoring. My first um, word of caution when I started to playing drums, it's all right to play the quartet or the Christian music, but do not play the secular or the worldly music.
Mhm.
And I would say to myself, 14, 15 years of age, when I first started playing a five-piece trap set in a quartet group, I would say to myself, the notes are not, there's not a Christian note and there's not a secular note. A note is a note,
But it was
but
the words. It was
the
the
words, ye-
words,
mhm,
the
yes,
lyrics.
the lyrics. So there was, for a moment there was a battle with me playing the instrument of the drums. You know, my parents with the mentality of that of very strong Christian home, but they saw that I was so demanding and so determined that I was going to play the drums. And I remember one Saturday morning, I said to my daddy, I says, "Look, I'm 17. I'm going to play these drums. I'm leaving." Where he told me, he says, "Pack your bags." So I started packing my bags. And in that day and time, in the 60s, we would leave our keys in the automobile. So my keys was in the ignition of the automobile. While I was packing my bags, Mama went outside, took my keys out of the ignition, and hid them. And so after I got my drums packed up and my clothes packed up and was ready to leave, I went to the car, no keys.
No keys.
So Mama say, "Son, go in there and cool down." She say, "Fields," my daddy, Fields, she called him Fields. "Fields, you go cool down and leave that boy alone."
But you have to ask yourself,
Hmm.
why were they so averse to this
Mm,
music? And it's because it was played in the juke joints and in the brothels. So they
hmm.
thought this is devil's music. But
Music.
its expression and the
Hmm.
the irony, they thought that they were safe in the
Hmm.
church.
Hmm.
Well, Birmingham proved that to be
Mm,
not true. Charleston proved that to be not true.
not true.
You so you know your safety is in your self-expression.
Self. Yeah. Awesome. I started a series on yesterday entitled Self Concept. And as you stated, it begins with self. As how we see ourselves, the mental image, the mental picture that we have of ourselves. And so it's so important that we see ourselves as being positive in the things that we do and not so much operating in fear or negativity. Uh, I cannot stress the importance of individuals knowing themselves, knowing their call, knowing what it is that they were sent here to this earth, to this plane to do, and how to do it. Nothing gives a person no greater strength and fulfillment than knowing their self worth.
Personal power,
Hmm.
personal power. And we look at these religions. Well, the three,
Hmm.
okay, which is Judeo,
Hmm.
Christian, and Islam.
Hmm.
They're all based upon fear. You know,
Fear.
I don't believe in a God that will strike me down for being in love with somebody. It will
Right.
strike me down for having a child and not having
Hmm.
the ring on my finger.
Right.
I don't believe that. Okay.
Right. Me
So
neither.
I have had difficulty with some of my friends when if I
Hmm.
come go to church and I was raised Catholic. And
Hmm.
by 17 years old, I saw the hypocrisy.
Hmm. Hmm.
No black
Hmm.
nuns, no black
Hmm.
priests.
Hmm.
These
Hmm.
people are committing embezzlement. They're alcoholics. They're we know they're sleeping with each other. The men are
Hmm.
with the men, the women. By 17, I left this church, left
Hmm.
it. 10
Hmm.
years later, I went to the Church of Christ, okay, a minister in Tampa. This man, his wife had 11 children, and you could see the life sucked out of her,
Hmm. Hmm.
playing her role.
As a
So
preacher's
I
wife.
couldn't do the role
Hmm.
play.
Hmm.
I'm not,
Hmm.
because I'm a survivalist. And I believe I knew about my personal power when I was
Hmm.
5. My mother
5.
came to spank me about something. I locked the bathroom door. She said, "Come out of there." Renee, that's what she called me,
Hmm.
Renee.
Hmm.
That's my middle name. I said, "No, I'm not coming out until you tell me that you're not going to beat me." No,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. So you have to, again, it's inside of you. That's where the God energy is. God is a
The inside.
frequency. God is
Hmm.
not a he. God is not a father. If
Hmm.
anything, God is a mother.
Yeah.
I'm a womanist. I'm not a feminist.
Hmm.
I'm a womanist.
Hmm.
And I believe in the power of women to
Yes.
change the world. But men have usurped the power of music and marginalized women. Women only earn less than 20% of the music industry, less than 20%.
20%.
But
Hmm.
every male musician came out of the body of a woman. And the woman's
Yes.
body was the first musical instrument that anybody experienced. The blood rushing through her veins is a string.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
heartbeat is a
Heartbeat.
drum.
Drum.
And she was probably humming. So
Humming.
please don't tell me that music is a man's invention.
No, it's not. That's so beautiful. So beautiful. You know, Dr. Joan, um, when I think about music and in my life, how music have helped me through some of my most darkest periods of my life. Um, as a child growing up, I always loved music. It didn't make any difference what type it was, whether it was country, western, soul, R&B. It didn't make any difference. Whether it was rock and roll, there was something about music that I just always loved. And musicians, I always gravitated toward them. How I got involved in the quote unquote holiness Pentecostal church was because in those churches they had the drums, they had the string instruments. Grown up in a Baptist and Methodist, there was only the piano.
Mhm.
So I had a itch to play the drums and the string instruments, but there was none of those allowed in the Baptist church or the Methodist church. So I found myself gravitating toward the Pentecostal holiness churches where I could hear the drums and then eventually started to play in the drums. And from there, from playing the drums, I started playing the bass guitar. And then from that, there was always just this love for music, didn't make any difference. Once again, if it was Michael Jackson singing, Prince, didn't make any difference. I love music. But I found myself in ministry and in the ministry of the Baptist denomination and the Methodist denomination that I was a part of. It was a no to listen to that secular
Mhm.
music.
Mhm.
So I found myself battling with myself. I would listen to the secular music while I was by myself. But while I was around others, then I portrayed the act of hypocrisy
Right.
and being quote unquote holy, 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 holy. So I found myself in a battle within myself. And this is why I am so thankful today that I am free from religion, free from that book, free from the mindset, the traditions, and the religions of men, free from that, that I can enjoy myself being the spiritual being who I'm created to be.
That's right.
I, I listen to the wind blowing and I hear music. I listen to the leaves ruffling in the wind. I hear music. I hear the crickets cricking and the chirping and the frogs croaking. I hear music.
Yes. It's
What will you
called
say?
the music of the spheres.
That's called what?
The music of the spheres. You
Okay.
see,
Hmm.
you know,
Okay.
actually, we thought that something, how did light come out of darkness?
Hmm.
Sound cracked the dark barrier.
Hmm.
But again, if there wasn't dark, there wouldn't be light.
Be light.
We live in a dual dimensional
Hmm.
existence here,
Hmm.
but there are right in this room, there are 14 different dimensions. When you
Hmm.
raise your vibration
Patience.
to to your God self.
Hmm.
And I learned this from a book called Out on the Limb by Shirley MacLaine.
Hmm.
When she was being massaged, she was having a therapeutical massage,
Okay.
and she literally left her body. She
Mm.
astral projected. And I experimented with that back in my early 20s when my daughter was with her father. And he
Mhm.
told me I would never see her again. They were in the
Mm.
Bronx. And I would lay down on the floor and just go to her. And soon after that, his second wife sent me a letter saying, well, we're going to take your daughter to a child psychologist because we don't know what's wrong with her. I said, well, I know what's wrong with her. Just send her to me. And she came to me and she was fine. So you see, people have all kinds of ideas about stuff, but knowing is different than believing something. You can believe something and then find out it's not true. But when you know something, you have the evidence of it. And I have had the evidence, like I said, since I was 5, that I am the co-creator with the universe in my life. Now, I'm not the co-creator in the universe for your life. I don't pretend to be that. Not even for the 2 people that came out of my womb. They have their own path.
Oh, that's right.
And I don't infringe on their path. And I don't allow anybody, mother, father, brothers, nobody to infringe on my path.
Exactly. You know, Dr. Joan, you said since the age of 5, you was aware of yourself. In other words, you knew your self-worth. You knew what you was going to accept and not accept.
That's right.
Now, I don't have to.
Uh-oh. You went
There
out
we
for a
go.
minute.
Minute, yeah. I don't have to ask you, but I know with that type of knowing and understanding that your life was that of a very tough, rocky life. You had a lot of battles that you had to fight because
But
with the mentality.
that was only with my husbands.
Okay.
Okay. I
The
didn't
close.
fight a lot of battles. They did call me at one point the Jazz Warrior. Okay. But I didn't really like that title. But what I knew
Mhm.
was I was not going to allow a man to batter me. I was
Right.
not going to allow a man to demean me. You know, you're not going to go and sleep with another woman and then come back and sleep with me. No, you know, I value myself. That's what happened. I looked in the mirror at 5 years old. I looked in these eyes and I knew who I was. And I
Right.
don't need a man to complete me.
Right. Right.
I need a man who's complete.
Mhm.
You see,
Mhm.
and that is very difficult for a woman of color to find
Mhm.
because the European system has degraded Black men. So they believe the hype.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so you have to, or I have to find somebody that doesn't believe the hype. And the hype is in the church. That's where it starts.
That's that's true. The patriarchal mentality
Yeah.
that places the men here and the women nowhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Nowhere.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's part of the toughness, the fight, the struggle, that I mean you had to endure, not succumbing to that dictatorship, that leadership, that type of living.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
If woman is man's helper,
Hmm.
what's wrong with him? Why does he need help?
if the woman is the man's helper,
Yeah. What?
why does he need the help?
Yeah. What does he need help with?
In all actuality, he don't, because it goes back to our call and our purpose. When we was called and when we were sent to this earth with a purpose, that purpose and that call did not include no one else. I believe that is a part of the European mentality
Mhm.
to structure the man and to structure the woman, to keep the woman in that place of subservientship.
That's right. But let me show you something else.
Mhm.
You know that 9 million women were burned at the stake.
At the stakes.
Why? Because they practiced healing.
Mhm.
Men wanted to practice medicine. They practiced by cutting, going inside. Women didn't need to
Mhm.
cut anything to
Mm-mm.
heal. They used
Mhm.
herbs,
Mhm. Mhm.
okay, and such. So it's a misconception that men are the leaders. They're not the leaders. They are
No.
the takers
The
of the
takers.
gifts of
Yes.
women. Now, that doesn't mean that men are bad. Listen,
Mhm.
I had 4 husbands, so I kind of like men, you know.
Mhm.
But if a man is, his relationship with you is detrimental to your health,
Mm.
you're a fool to stay,
Mhm. Mhm.
because the church doesn't believe in divorce,
Right.
or
Right.
your
Right.
girlfriends think you should stay, or your mother thinks you, or your father, you should stay.
Mhm.
No, I'm not. You
Mhm.
go live with him and let him beat on you.
Right. Right.
Look at this. I, you know, if I told you how old I am, you wouldn't believe it. You
No.
wouldn't. But I have 9.5, almost 10 great grandchildren.
Great grand.
And I
So.
look like this because I've been single for 24 years.
Mhm.
So I don't have those worry lines. I don't look like that because I'm not arguing with
Exactly.
anybody.
Mhm. Exactly.
Okay.
Once again, it goes back to your self concept, your self worth, your
So
self knowing,
personal
and
power.
mhm. and I can concur with exactly what you're saying. Um, this is my third marriage, 30 years in one, 5 in the second. And this last marriage, which July will be 3 years, have totally eradicated every pain, disappointment, setback, whatever, whatever from the past. It's like I never have been married before.
Mm.
And as a result of that, as well as the freedom from religion, there has been a total reversal physically, mentally in my life. When individuals who I grew up with, especially family members, they see such of a drastic change upon me, and then new individuals who I meet, for example, I'm at the gym every morning, they cannot believe my age.
Mhm.
But I do know for a fact that if I would not have discovered my self-worth, developed my self-concept, got away from religion, got away from those marriages that I was a
Lies.
part of,
Oh, lies.
lies, yes,
Liars.
and all of that, I
Mhm.
would be dead.
Mhm. Well,
But yet,
see,
as a as
people
a
don't
as a
understand that cancer is
exactly.
stuffed emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh wow. Yeah. Now I want to go to the next question because in that short span of time that we've been going 41 minutes now,
Mhm.
we touched on a lot of areas. And it seems like we kind of dev off from the path of music and composition of music, but not really, because music is what kept you, what sustained you
Yes.
through it all. Now, are you still singing?
No.
Why would you quit singing?
Okay. So I did a cruise
Mm-hmm.
on the Allure of the Seas.
Mm-hmm.
It was 28 days at sea, but we would come
Wow.
in every Sunday to Fort
Mm-hmm.
Lauderdale and then go
Mm-hmm.
either east or west in the
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean. So I was in the jazz room. At the time, I had a problem with my feet swelling. I
Okay.
was 67 years old at the time. And now I'm telling my age, but I had a wonderful time
Mm-hmm.
with my audiences because I love to have fun and my
Mm-hmm.
music is fun. I
Sure.
write happy blues. I write blues like treat me right and you don't have to marry me, or I don't want nobody's husband, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was very uncomfortable in where they had me living in a little
Mm-hmm.
teeny tiny room. I did not like the accommodations, but
Mm-hmm.
they had 30 and 40-year-olds in suites
Wow.
that were doing shows, and they
Mm-hmm.
treated me like the help. So I said after that, I'm done. I had sung for 63 years. Anybody
Wow.
can retire after 30 years of work.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Why, as a musician, do I need to work until I'm 70 years old?
Right.
So I
Right.
quit. But it was the third time I quit. I quit two other times too, but I went
Mm-hmm.
back. But also, I was taking Losartan and hydrochlorothiazide for to keep my blood pressure down. And
Okay.
the pill kept getting stuck in my throat, and I think it damaged my vocal cords. So I really can't sing. Well, that was a perfect excuse to say, I'm not singing anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
was tired of working in clubs that wanted to pay me $100 a night. And they got
Mm-hmm.
50 people out there. I'm making $2 a person.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not entertaining people for $2. You know, well, the other problem is
Right.
that I had lived in Switzerland for on and off for 8 years, and I made good money over there. But when I
Sure.
came back to America, I was reduced to these clubs where they only wanted to pay them. They told you what they pay you. No, you don't go to Publix and you tell them what you're gonna pay for an apple,
Right.
you know. So I just said, you know what? To hell with this. I've
Mm-hmm.
sung, you want to hear me sing, buy my CDs, go to my videos, but I'm out. I'm done. So that's why I don't sing anymore.
That's good enough because the laborer is worthy of their hire. Dr. Joan, You have produced a many books. Tell us of the materials, the books. Tell us about the material in the books that you have produced over the years.
So the first book is called In Pursuit of a Melody. And I finished that book in 2009. Uh, no, 2006. Sorry. It took me
Okay.
a year and a half to write it.
Hmm.
It is 100 pages of memoir.
Mm.
It's 35 poems that I wrote, 40 songs, and two lectures. One is called Amazing Music Women, with 40 women that I talk about. And so you want to be a singer about the
Mhm.
business of music.
Mhm.
Well, I
Okay.
broke that book out into 5 books. So you have the complete anthology, you have the song book, the poetry book, and the two lectures.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
after that, I did my master's degree, and I had 3 papers that I wrote. The first one was called The Sign of the Blues. I
Okay.
took the Marxist theory that all art is a direct result of human condition and applied it to the blues.
Okay.
The second one is jazz, the unmasked rhetoric. Jazz is when Black musicians took the mask off from minstrelsy
Okay.
and they were telling the truth through their horns and their instruments. The third paper was my master's thesis,
Mhm.
The Cultural Politics of Commercial Jazz. And that discusses how European musicians took our music, packaged it, marketed it, and commercialized the music. So for
Mhm.
20 years, we had smooth jazz,
Mm.
which was not as difficult to play as bebop. Miles Davis started the smooth jazz movement,
That's
but
what.
all he did was go back to the blues. Okay, so then the G boys came, Kenny
Mhm.
G, Nah G, and you had Black musicians imitating white musicians, imitating
Mhm.
Black musicians, which
Mm.
is okay. So smooth jazz kind of had a bad death after
Mhm.
20 years. Okay, then I wrote, so that those 3 papers became a history book, a history of African American jazz and blues, which I was
Mhm.
blacklisted for in Miami for having the
Wow.
nerve to
Mhm.
write that jazz and blues is African American music.
Wow. And you were
We
black.
live in a deluded country.
Yes.
This country is full of people who are deluded
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
culture because
Mhm.
Europeans created nothing but
Nothing.
misery in this
Mhm.
country. They
Mhm.
did not create any art form.
Nope. Stole and took
They
everything.
benefited from every art form that we ever created.
Mhm.
And don't forget what the blues is. It is not B.B. King. It is not John Lee Hooker. It is a Black woman crying. That's what the blues is.
Yes. Awesome. Dr. Joan, who would you say has been your most influential jazz performer?
Well, of course, Ella Fitzgerald, who hugged me in front of 10,000 people in Philadelphia at the Cool Jazz Festival. But Freddie Hubbard, the trumpet player, recorded my song, Sweet Return, on Atlantic Records in 1983, which is my claim to fame. And that's on Atlantic Records. And you can hear it on the internet. Sweet Return. He legitimized me as a composer.
Awesome. Wow. What a legacy. What some powerful, awesome instrumental persons that have impacted your life. If a person desire to purchase some of your material, where could they go to
Well,
receive
right
that?
now, you can get anything on iTunes or Spotify, but I'm about to move to a Black-owned platform called Maverick. I just have to get the time to move all my music over there because these platforms are ripping musicians off. I mean, Prince proved that, you know. So my daughter met a woman who has this platform. We're in Atlanta, and I will be doing that hopefully in the next few weeks. But right now, you can just put in Joan Cartwright music and it'll come up. And then I put my links in the chat.
Oh, wow. You know, I look forward to introducing my son to you.
Mhm.
I know that there's something in the connection, and I want to make sure that he have the opportunity to speak with you. He's a musician there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Fayetteville, Arkansas, doing some
Mm.
great things. But I truly want him to touch bases with you. I will definitely see to that. I want to say to you, listeners today as well, that her Cash App is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And I want to ask you, take the liberty to sow into her life, into her music, and you
Thank
will
you.
come out being the better and the greater one. Music
So
mama.
music, my mom. I'm my mom. But when I got
Yeah.
my doctorate, I made my kids call me Dr. Mom. So, but I do want to tell your listeners, we
Mhm,
are planning the first annual Music Woman Festival in
wow.
Atlanta, October
Mhm,
the 19th. And you can go to musicwoman.art.
mhm.
I'll put that in the chat too.
Okay,
And
great.
we publish Music Woman magazine each year. We would like to do it more, but it costs a lot of money to
Mhm,
pull it together, graphic design and editing, and to
mhm,
print it costs a lot of money. But if you go to our website, musicwomanmagazine.com, you can read all of the magazines. There's a link to go to issue.com where you can read Music Woman magazine and Music Man
mhm,
magazine. And
mhm,
then we are hoping to publish Music Teen magazine where we
mhm.
focus on teenagers who pursue music.
Awesome, awesome. Um, Dr. Joan, I believe some of your information is there on that slide as well.
Yes, that's for my books.
That's for your books. Okay.
The last one, The Blues Women, I do a
Mhm,
lecture, and you can
mhm,
find that lecture on YouTube, Blues Women, the first civil rights workers. See,
mm,
people don't make that connection
mhm.
that blues women were the first ones to say, I'm a whole person. I'm not three-fifths of anything.
Right.
I'm a whole person, and you're going to love me.
Wow. Dr.
So
Joan,
tiny book.
In our closing, let's see here. Okay. In our closing moments, what would be your final words to our listeners and viewers?
Keep your dream close to your heart, and your
Mm,
mind will know the answer, while your
mm.
soul plays the chords. Your imagination can be the dancer.
Wow. Awesome. You know, I have certainly enjoyed our time together, and I pray that it will not be our last.
No,
You are such a phenomenal person.
thank you so
From
much.
day one, from day one that I was introduced to you and I heard your voice, there was something very special about you. And you are such a person of love. I don't see why you are not called the Lady Love.
Lady Love, okay.
But I
I think
see
Lionel
such
Richie said that, right?
but I see such great frequencies of love radiating from you. You chose to love. You chose to be loved. You chose to give love when you could give hell.
Oh, I
And
could.
and because of that, your life is preserved and your life is lengthened. Your future, you have experienced so much joy in your past. But you mark these words down. Your future joyful days shall strike your life again. Unexpected joy shall overflow within your life. New places and yes, new faces await you. Dr. Joan, I appreciate you. I love you. And I want to do this again real soon.
Very soon.
All
Very soon.
right.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so
And
much for
you should
yes.
become the 77th member, male member of our organization, supporting women musicians. It's $60 a year. The link is there. Women in Jazz,
The,
South Florida.
okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
And
We'll
then
look into that.
then you're in my circle. Yeah. But let
Awesome.
me say this.
Yes.
The only reason why I'm here, Michael, is
Hmm.
because you are love. Thank you.
Thank you. I received
And
that.
Khalif, who introduced us, is
Yes.
love. Thank you.
Thank you. I received that. I received that. All right. There you have it today. Mountaintop Living with our very special guest, Dr. Joan Cartwright. I want to say to you, go back, listen to this podcast again, because I promise you there were some things that were said that you did not hear. And when you go back and review it, you're going to say, oh, wow, I see that. I missed that. I needed that. Until the next time, this is Dr. Michael Fields with Mountaintop Living. We will see you at the top. Until the next time, Michael Fields. Peace out. Bye bye for
Thank you.
now. Thank you, Dr.
Ascend.
Jones.
Ascend.
Ascend. Thank you.